Alright, so last time we did this first part of part 3, develop a shooting mechanism. Now we're going to look at adding our meteorite and the explosion that goes along with that. So let's head on back. We need to, first thing we're going to do is create our explosion events, or objects rather. And we're going to have 2 explosion objects. So we're going to have meteorite explosion object, and that is going to be our explosion sprite. And we're going to create another object, and we'll call it this player explosion. And the idea here is when the player explodes, if the meteorite hits the player, then the player is going to die and explode. We're going to do a different action than if the meteorite is hit with a bullet, that one exploding. So that's why we're going to use 2 different objects. Same sprite for both, but we're going to use the different objects. Okay, and we're not going to actually program those just yet. We're going to come back to those, but we're going to use those in our meteorite object. So let's create our meteorite. Object, and we'll be using our meteorite sprite. Okay, and then on our create event, we are going to set our vertical speed. Now the meteorites, the background's going about 2, the bullets are going around 6, the player is going at 4. We want the player to not be able to get out of the way if they're coming down, so let's set our vertical speed of 6 so that they're going faster than the player, slower than the bullets. Okay, and then we also need to add a step event, and this is going to be our spot to check when we scroll off the screen. So just like we did before, let's come over and check our variable. We're going to check our y variable, and we're going to look to see if it is larger than room height. And if so, we want to relocate it. So we're going to do a jump very similar to what we did before. The y is going to be, let's have our y at, this is a 64 object, so let's make our y at least minus 70, so we're a little bit below that screen. And then here, just like we did with the planets, we're going to use random room width. Alright, so now we're going to add our collision events for our meteorite. So we're going to have a collision event for the player. So if I collide with my main object, so I need to do a couple things here. The first thing I'm going to do is change the instance of the sprite to our explosion. This is player explosion. And perform events, yes. Then I am going to play a sound, which is our explosion sound. And then I'm going to destroy the instance of this meteorite. Okay. And I'm essentially going to do the same thing for right now for my collision with my meteorite, or with my bullet. The one thing I'm going to do differently is I'm going to change to the meteorite explosion and do the same thing. Alright, so let's take a look at this. Alright, so before we can go test it, we need to add our meteorites into our room. So let's go do that. Let's put 4 meteorites in right now. We'll save that and run it. Alright, and so our meteorites are moving pretty fast. Okay. But you notice they do loop over. And that looks good. Okay, so we have a few things to clean up around the explosions and things like that, but we will tackle some of that in a little bit.